Hey guys, Joe of the Joe Madden Sports Podcast here, joined this afternoon by Chris Andrews, a director of the South Point Sportsbook and Casino. Chris, welcome to the show. How's the day treating you?
So far, so good, Joe. Nice to be on with you.
Well, it's an honor to have you on the show today. I'm excited. We're going to talk the Bucs' position in the NHL, the NBA playoffs here. But first, I want to get into talking about yourself. How did you get into this industry, Chris?
Well, I grew up in a wise guy family back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we knew my uncle lived with us from the time I was about 5 or 6 years old. And we knew what he did. It was never a secret or anything like that. And then in 1970, so I was 14, he got indicted for various things: interstate gambling, bookmaking, that sort of thing. He wound up beating it for a variety of reasons. Not that he was innocent, and he always said if they just tried to pin too much on him, if they just stuck to the facts, they probably would have nailed him. But they didn't. That's just a typical police overreach. Anyway, after that, he wound up moving to Las Vegas. Now, a lot of people don't know that. So that was 1970. So by the time I graduated college, 1978. Pittsburgh was in the throes of a horrible depression. All the steel industry moved out of the country, really. So one by one, my whole family moved out to Las Vegas. And in 1979, I joined them as well. So most of our family's out here. And I have two cousins that, well, my one is retired, but he ran a sports book at the Hilton, the Station casinos for a long time. My other cousin, my uncle's son, he runs two sports books in Mesquite, Nevada, and our whole family is in the business, and that's been our family business. It's been very good for all of us.
That is an interesting story. So, was your uncle the very first one in the business?
Yeah, and he started when he was in high school. He was booking. Wow. He had like this baseball prop, and I wish I could remember it. But he told me, he says, if Ted Williams or Joe DiMaggio went 0 for 4, he says, you could forget about it. Nobody had a winner. So he started that. And, and like I said, he's been very, very successful. He's passed away now. I go through my first book that I wrote called Then One Day is dedicated to him, and a lot of stories about him in that book. And, he's quite a figure, and he's really a legend here in Las Vegas and, of course, in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. I'm definitely going to have to get a hold of one of those books and give it a read, because I could imagine there's some incredible stories in there.
Yeah, well, they're all mostly true, I would say. I couldn't remember every conversation, but they're mostly true.
Absolutely. So, Chris, you get to Vegas. What was your first job once in Vegas?
Well, my first job, I was a ticket writer at the Stardust Hotel. Now, if anybody's seen the movie Casino, those stories are based on the Stardust. Now, I got in kind of right after that, but there was still a lot of shenanigans going on in that place, and I learned a lot on how to do things, how not to do things. And again, I cover that pretty well in the book. There's a lot of stories about the Stardust, but that was my very first job. I worked there for a year, and then Michael Gaughan, who I worked for again. Anyway, Michael Gaughan was, he opened the Barbary Coast, and he hired me to come into the Barbary Coast, and I worked there. And that's the first job I had any like real responsibilities. But I was young. I was only 24, but I learned an awful lot of the business. And like Joe, I've been extremely lucky growing up with my uncle and, just having a lot of connections in this business. I got an education that, Harvard or any Ivy League school, or I guess even McGill, you would say, you can never get an education as good as I did in this particular business. And I was smart enough to keep my mouth shut and learn as much as I could.
Absolutely. You can't replicate that in school at all. What do you think the biggest lesson you learned from your uncle was?
Wow. I think probably the biggest lesson is to understand the numbers and don't ever take the worst of the number. You always have to get the best number, or you can pass. Yes. They play sports all the time. If you missed one today, there's another one coming tomorrow, or next week or whatever. So don't take a bad number. Don't manage your money wisely. And that's probably the biggest lesson I learned from my uncle.
Okay, so fast forward to now. You're the director of the South Point Sportsbook and Casino. How did you start there?
Well, like I said, I worked for Michael Gaughan in 1980. Michael recommended me for a job in Reno, and I went there and I spent the next 22 years in Reno. And I eventually became an owner of the casino up there, one of the owners. I mean, I had a small piece. Uh, there's some things that happened there, and I wound up leaving. I came back to Las Vegas. I worked at the Golden Nugget for a little while. Uh, they got sold, and then I worked for American Wagering for a little while. I got out of the business. I had some friends who were like Wall Street guys, and they recruited me to be a partner in their business. And I went there, and don't you know, I went there, and and we had the great the great what, not depression, what's the word that they use, but 2008, the great, oh my god, my words are escaping right now. But anyway, it's 2008 is when I joined them, and things went downhill quickly, and I wound up getting back into the business, doing various things. I had some.
Might have lost you here, Chris. Can you hear me? You guys are just going to give it 1 second. I think Chris is frozen on his side.
And I wound up taking the job. That was 2016, and I've been here since. It was a great move for me, and hopefully the South Point would echo the same thing.
Absolutely. I'm sure they would, Chris. How's the vibe? How's the mood at the South Point today?
Well, our business is great, and I love Michael Gaughan. My last book that I wrote, I dedicated to Michael, and I think he's the greatest casino operator literally in the world. And I've been around quite a bit. So we have a great casino here. He's tremendously supportive of me and everything I do here. And so, I mean, besides the sports book being in great shape, I mean, really the whole casino is just thriving right now. And, it's an honor to be here and associated with the South Point.
Absolutely. Now, what do you think the most positive change through your career has been in the industry, Chris?
Well, I'd say just the market has grown so much. You got to remember. So when I started in 1979, we booked football, basketball, and baseball. I mean, hockey, was not even something that we booked. And when I say we booked football, baseball, and basketball, all we booked was sides. We didn't book totals. In football, we had teasers. But I remember walking into Bill Dark, and he had a place in North Las Vegas called the Del Mar. And I think it was 1978 or so. And I walked in, and I looked up on the board, and they had Steelers -6.5, and there was I think a 38 next to it. I said, "What's that 38 mean? What's that?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, that's the over and under. You bet the total points scored in the game over or under that amount." I said, "Oh my God, this is incredible. I never heard of such a thing." And obviously, the business has grown since then. We added hockey not long after that with the great Edmonton Oiler teams, and really, go back to the Montreal Canadiens with Lafleur and that outfit. And then we had money lines, we had totals, and I tell this story, and it's the truth. I think so. This is when I went to Cal Neva, and I want to say it was 1984. I put up one of the majors in golf, and I had a guy that helped me with the line. We put together the line, and I opened it up. We had all the golfers, and I had one, and I'm not joking, one $5 bet on the entire thing. And the guy who we bet on didn't even start, so I had to give him his money back. So this is, from that, I mean, where I never got a bet to where golf is now, which is like a huge, huge revenue source for us, particularly the majors, and we booked NASCAR, we booked Formula One, soccer. There's so many things we do now that was unheard of when I started in this business, when I first came to Las Vegas in 1979.
Just crazy. I love your story into the industry. Talking about what's going on right now in sports, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals kick off tomorrow night. What is your position in this? Which team is the book hoping wins this one?
Well, at this point, it's the Avalanche. And I'm not the only one, but I had the Avalanche pegged early in the season. I just thought they were the best team in the league. So I tried to go in needing them as much as I could. Now, I wish I was smart enough to say I saw Tampa Bay coming too. I did a little. But listen, Joe, you have to understand my position. If the math is right and the odds are correct, you got to take a big bet. And
Yeah.
I had a guy, and we were in great shape with both of them. And some guy came in just about a week ago, and they weren't through their last series with the Rangers yet. And the guy wanted a big bet on Tampa Bay. I said, well, the math is right. We got to take it. But before
Yeah.
that, I had both teams going for me pretty good. But right now, I need the Avalanche. I don't lose much with Tampa, but just a tiny bit. But I've had, like I said, the Avalanche. I had them pegged from early in the year. I like
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, but I also knew that they had, that side of the league was very, very tough. But they got through it, and you have to, I know it's become a cliche, but you have to respect the heart of a champion, and they, two-time
Absolutely.
champions, and I mean they're 4 wins away from making it a three-peat, and they're going to be very dangerous. I mean, they certainly have the goaltending, I could tell you that. So sometimes a hot goaltender, and Vasilevsky's a hot goaltender. He's been hot for about the last 10 years, but I
Yeah.
mean, he could certainly win this, I could tell you.
Yeah, he could get them the win for sure. Now, what about in the NBA? Are you guys rooting for the Warriors or the Celtics from your position?
Well, that's one more where we're a decent position both ways, but we do much better with the Warriors right now. And if they could close them out in the next game, I'll be very happy because we have certain things, you could bet to win an X amount of games. So
Yeah.
I need the Warriors, but I did have a lot of money on the Warriors to win in 7 games. So if they can win it in
Okay.
6 games, that would be even better. So I'm going to be rooting for the Warriors when the game comes a couple nights from now. But we're not in bad shape either way, and it's been a great series. And by the way, getting back to the Stanley Cup, I think this is going to be a fantastic series. Like I said, you got the 2-time defending champions and the team that I think has been the best in the league the whole year. So I'm looking forward to both these series. We're almost to the end of the NBA, but the Stanley Cup is going to be terrific.
It is going to be absolutely incredible. Have you found more people in Vegas eager to bet hockey as we've seen the Golden Knights come into Vegas and all the changes?
Yeah, no doubt about it. When I first got here, like I said, 2016, I had to fight with my supervisors every night and say, no, you got to put hockey in. Oh, nobody watches hockey. I said, no, you got to put it. And they, no, it's just because you're from back. He's not from Pittsburgh. It's because, I said, well, no, I mean, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people, in the casino here that are from Chicago or Detroit or New
Yeah.
York or, New Jersey, just pick wherever. We've got to have it on. Then when the Knights came on, they had immediate success. Uh, they've gone backwards since then, but they had immediate success and really garnered a lot of enthusiasm in this town for the Knights and for hockey in general. And since then, our hockey business has just exploded. With or without the Knights. I mean, with the
Yeah.
Knights in, it definitely helps. But even without them, like I said, our handle for these last couple of series, the Knights haven't been in the playoffs, but it's been terrific. The games are fantastic. So it's and been much better in the NBA games, really. So the hockey has really become tremendously popular. And like I said, if we went back 7 years ago, that wouldn't have existed. And where they are now,
Yeah.
it's just grown exponentially.
Well, I'm happy to hear it because I am up here in Canada and
Obviously,
national sport for us is
yeah.
hockey.
Well, I
So,
told you I've been to Calgary and Edmonton. Been I've been to Vancouver a few times, and
yeah.
I'm not just pandering to your audience, but I love Canada.
Yeah, it is a beautiful country, that is for sure, but not as nice and warm as in Vegas. I'm definitely going to have to come see you down there, Chris, at the South Point. So eager to get down to Vegas soon.
Well, try not to come in July or August because it's not so beautiful when it's 115 out. Trust me.
Okay, so I originally was born in Australia, so I love
Ah,
the heat. So,
okay. I've been to Australia a couple times too. Where at in Australia?
I was born outside of Sydney in a little town called Barrow. Most people have not heard of it.
I don't
Small
know.
town.
Yeah, I just really flew in and out of Sydney. I spent time in Perth and Melbourne. That's where I spent most of my time.
Oh, my brother is actually just visiting from Melbourne. He leaves Fridays, so definitely a beautiful part of the
Yeah,
country down there.
yeah, love it down there too. Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me here. Where can everyone find everything that you have going on your social media, on South Point? Where can they find all that information?
Well, you can go to my My Twitter is Chris Andrews Sport. I'm sorry, mine's Andrews Sports. 2 S's there in the middle, and I have links there. And I have 2 books written. One's called Then One Day, which that one's that's kind of a fun read. Then the other one is Then One Year, which I wrote during the pandemic. I didn't mean to do it then. I just wanted to have a year in the life of a bookmaker. And of course, I chose 2020 to do it when the whole world went crazy. But I can tell you, the people in our business that have read the second book love it. But I think the first one is definitely for a much broader audience. And I actually have a novel that's coming out probably in the next couple of weeks too. So that's the best way to follow me, is at Andrew Sports. And there's links there to the South Point and Jimmy Vaccaro and a lot of my other friends here in Las Vegas. So you can just find who I follow and retweet a lot. You could probably follow the Vegas scene pretty closely.
Absolutely. Well, you guys make sure you go over and give Chris Andrews a follow. Can't wait for that novel to come out, Chris. And I'm going to get my hands on your other 2 books for sure. Would love to give them a read and to learn some more about your daily days as a bookmaker back then, and then on your uncle's stories. I think those are going to be phenomenal. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining me.
There's an Australia story in there too that you might like too.
Well, I love it. Now I'm even more interested, Chris. It was an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on today. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You guys, I will be back at 7:00 Eastern with another Joe Madden Sports podcast. So stay tuned. Make sure you go give Chris Andrews a follow on Twitter at Andrews Sports. Thank you, Chris.